Welcome back to the Point Guard Cast with your host Sean and Corey. Corey,
Sean, what's up?
how you been doing, man?
Been all right. I mean, as good as I can be with my team, as incompetent as they are, but I guess we'll talk about that in this episode.
Hey, welcome to the club. I've been feeling that way the last few years. But NBA trade deadline is here. And a blockbuster trade actually happened.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a shock because it was rumored to happen. It's been rumored the last couple weeks.
It shocked me.
And then that is true.
Me.
I mean, true. Like it could be. I mean, I feel like I saw it coming, but at the same time, if it didn't happen, I wasn't surprised because I guess I didn't. I mean, of course, how would I know how bad things really were in Brooklyn? But I didn't think things were that bad in Brooklyn. But anyway,
I mean, they've lost 10 games straight, and Kevin Durant hasn't been playing. Kyrie can't play at home, so it's like James Harden by himself most of the time. And I guess he wasn't missing with that. But
true. You know what? We'll come back to that because I got a counter to that. So we'll come back to that. Okay, so the Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers made the trade that been rumored the last couple of weeks. So the Brooklyn Nets send James Harden and Paul Millsap to the Philadelphia 76ers in exchange for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and picks. Very interesting trade. Everybody knew that. I mean, we knew if this trade were to happen, it was gonna be James Harden for Ben Simmons. I mean, it was rumored last year. I also think it's crazy that at about the same time last year, James Harden was in trade talks. Also, he was leaving Houston and possibly either going to Philadelphia or to Brooklyn. As we know, he chose Brooklyn. So how do you feel about this trade?
the destination for James Harden is not surprising considering Daryl Morey is
Okay.
their GM.
Right.
But the fact that James Harden is traded already 1 year into his Brooklyn run, isn't it? Not a year to it.
I mean, it's technically year two, but I mean, he got there January of last year, so.
They only played like 15 games here. The big difference.
Right. Yeah. All three stars. Yeah. Exactly.
We don't know what they look like for real when they're healthy.
Right.
He didn't want to wait it out. James Harden, I just don't know about him. And like he's been disgruntled. He was disgruntled in Houston. Now he's disgruntled right here in Brooklyn, where you should have had a championship level team. They've lost 10 games in a row. So I think a change needed to happen. But the fact that it happened kind of feels surprising. Because it's like they didn't put the amount of effort into it that I thought they should have put into it to try to make that thing work. Only person I feel like that did was Kevin Durant. He just didn't.
Okay. I like that. It's very good points. I agree with you on every point. You know what's crazy? I think last season they only played like 5 or 6 games together, all three, but they were 6-0 or 5-0 in all three of those games.
Very good. Yeah.
So I felt like, and I know that they felt like, hey,
it's a small sample size, but
yeah, of course it is small, right? But I think that I felt like as long as the three of them could be together and be healthy, they would be fine. And of course, going into this season with the mandates and everything going on in New York, that changed things, of course, with Kyrie Irving. But it seemed like James Harden and Kevin Durant were willing to continue forward with just the two of them. But I do think that between the situation with Kyrie, KD getting hurt recently, the rule change kind of affecting James Harden to begin the season, I just think that those are a few of the things that kind of made him feel uncomfortable in Brooklyn. I also feel like he came from Houston. Like in Houston, he was the man in Houston, right? Like that city loved James Harden like no other. Like I remember when it was rumored that he was going to leave Houston last year. You had fans making videos, like seeing him in public and like begging him to stay and all that, like saying how much they loved him. So I just don't think in a city like New York, he gets that same type of love because you got, even though the Knicks aren't better than the Nets, most people would feel like it's still the Knicks city. Like that's New York City it's the Knicks city. You know what I mean? So although the Nets have the bigger stars, there's way more Knicks fans than Nets fans. And I'm pretty sure he gets that feel kind of when he walks around the city. You know what I mean? So I just feel like between Kyrie, KD constantly being hurt, and then maybe not feeling as much love as he felt in Houston. And I don't know, it could be coaching also, and it could be the front office. Like maybe he doesn't like the Nets front office. Maybe he's not too fond of Steve Nash. Like there's just a lot of things that could go into it. But I know for a fact, especially with the way Kevin Durant was with the All-Star selections, it seems like he for sure has a beef with his other two co-stars.
Did you notice how noticeably happy LeBron James was than Kevin Durant in that All-Star draft?
I did. Part of it was I feel like since LeBron's the face of the league, he kind of has to. Like imagine if he gets up there after the Lakers just had that terrible loss to Portland. He's kind of just seems down.
Yeah, LeBron. Yeah, I get it. You're right.
You know what I mean? So whether or not he is happy, I feel like he is though. I feel like he is genuinely happy, and I just feel like KD just like, I don't care. I'm not happy. I'm gonna let you know it. I don't care.
LeBron that makes it feel like I feel. It's cool.
I feel like he does on the inside, but he's not showing it. So who do you think? Okay, so out of these two teams, right, with James Harden and Paul Millsap going to the 76ers, teaming up with Joel Embiid, and then with Seth Curry, Ben Simmons, and Andre Drummond going to Brooklyn with Kyrie and KD. Out of these two teams, who do you think will benefit the most in the long run?
Okay.
Because I know a lot of people are kind of picking right now in the short term, but I can tell one of these two teams was thinking about the long run in the long term. So who do you feel out of these two will benefit the most?
I was going to say, the way you worded that question, I was going to say short term and long term anyway. Because short term, I feel like it's the Philadelphia 76ers. Long term,
okay.
I believe it's a Brooklyn Nets. Because once everybody gets back and healthy, and they
okay,
get some games under each other's belt. I don't know if Ben Simmons is going to play point guard and Kyrie's going to play 2, or Ben Simmons is going to play 4. But once they get all that figured out, I think the Brooklyn Nets will be a 4. But short term though, this season,
okay,
I think James Harden makes Philadelphia more of a contender than they were before this trade, obviously, because they didn't have Ben Simmons to pair along with Joel Embiid. They have a star now to pair along with Joel Embiid, but they got rid of players like Seth Curry that's going to help Brooklyn in a long term. Like players like that is another reason I say Brooklyn long term. Philly doesn't have them anymore. Brooklyn does. They also have Patty Mills. Brooklyn has a nice team. When they're healthy, they're going to have a nice team.
Right.
So short term, Philadelphia long term.
Okay. You know what? I like that, and I agree with that 100%.
Which one did you?
I think
so you agree?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think in the long term, Brooklyn will win it. They got more, in my opinion. I know that Ben Simmons hasn't played this year, and I know that last time we saw him play, he didn't have the best playoff series ever, but that doesn't mean he hasn't been working. Like, he's been sitting out just because he didn't want to play alongside Joel Embiid and didn't want to play under Doc Rivers anymore. And to be honest, I don't really blame him. When you have a bad series, go ahead.
Is that the way you handle it? Because I feel like both players handle it terribly.
True. I agree with that. But I guess I just feel like in a time where Ben Simmons was already down because he was playing bad, and then you had the comments coming from his coach, and you had the comments coming from his co-star, and then you had the Philly fans making crazy videos about how much they hate him and calling him a crumb bum. I just feel like he wanted his team, more specifically his head coach and his co-star, to have his back, and they didn't.
For sure. You're right. What about James Harden?
So when you got that kind of disrespect, I mean, I don't blame him for not wanting to do anything with those people, because it's like when I was down and needed somebody, and maybe he looked to them to, for some uplifting, and for them to have those comments along with the fans bashing him, I just feel like he was like, it's cool. I'm not wanting here. I'm going to go elsewhere.
That kind of reminds me of what's happening with Russell Westbrook right now.
Okay, I can see that.
I'm not saying that the players don't have his back, but the fans certainly are trying.
Right.
And the coach, obviously there's a disconnect between him and Frank Vogel when he gets benched and he says things like he feels like he earned the right to be in a clutch time no matter what. So there's obvious disconnect between Frank Vogel and Russell Westbrook.
Right. I agree with that.
It's probably the Lakers' two biggest problems right now. I feel like the whole roster is a problem. But we not talking about that yet. Go ahead. What were you saying?
No, we'll get into the Lakers in a second. So with James Harden going to Philly, right? This is the second year in a row where he's kind of forced his way out of a city.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like he's handling these situations terribly. How can you do that 2 times in a row? That's like Antonio Brown type of stuff. To a lesser degree.
True. So how do you feel he will handle it in Philly if things don't work out? Because as you can see, Joel Embiid doesn't bite his tongue in terms of his teammates. If he don't like you, he'll let it be known. Or if he doesn't agree with something you do or don't do, he'll let it be known. Whether he takes shots at you on social media or in his media comments, like he will let it be known. So, do you feel like James Harden will finally find a way to make this one work, or do you think he'll just force his way out again if things don't go right?
I hope so, because if he tries to force his way out again, the third team in a row, I think he becomes an untradeable contract.
Ooh, okay.
I don't think anybody's going to be eager to trade for James Harden if he continues to put risks in the locker room that he's playing in. Because he's not happy with something that's going on, and he wants to be traded somewhere else.
Okay.
Like, he didn't even let a whole season. He wasn't even there an entire season in Brooklyn with 2 other stars, 2 other champions. As if the champions don't know what it takes to win, and he just knows everything. You know what? Yeah, I don't think he continues to be a tradable contract if he doesn't work out.
Okay.
What do you think? You think Phil I think somebody would take James Harden. Like the Sacramento Kings would take James Harden.
Right.
If he tries to force his way out of it.
Of course. I think any franchise is down bad right now would take him. Not even right now. Some of these franchises that are terrible now are going to be terrible next season too, because clearly they can't make competent decisions. So if he were to, a lesser team will for sure take him. But what does that do for James Harden in his career?
He's going to want to get out again. His legacy will be shot. Well, I'm not going to say shot because
right.
Like what real? Never mind. I'm not even going to go there. He's a former MVP, scoring champion, great player, great offensive player. Don't necessarily like the way he used to play. I haven't seen him much this season because I've been kind of checked out. But yeah, what was I saying?
I don't think. How about this? I think since this will be James Harden's third team in like 2.5, 3 years, and since this is a destination that he kind of wanted to go to last season, also like if he didn't get the opportunity to go to Brooklyn, he would have gone to Philly. And since now he's reunited with Daryl Morey, I think he's going to stick it out this time and try to make it work.
Question.
Yes.
Who left Houston first? Was it James Harden or Daryl?
I'm pretty sure it was Daryl Morey first.
Okay.
It was Daryl Morey. Yeah, Daryl Morey first. Then Russell Westbrook. Then James Harden.
Yeah, that's probably why he wanted to get out of Houston because Darren Moore, the guy that you gives him everything he wants.
Right. Yeah, that could be what it is. I just think I think now he's gonna find a way to make it work because I think he understands that if it doesn't work out with Joel Embiid, everybody's gonna look at him and say that he was the problem. So it didn't work out with him and Russ in Houston. They'll say, well, actually, I lied. Some people will say it's because of him, but the way Russell Westbrook is set up right now, a lot of people are probably going to continue to say it was because of Russ. Never mind. But they'll for sure blame him for the reason why the Brooklyn experiment didn't work out. And I don't think he wants that on his legacy, with people saying it didn't work out in Brooklyn because of him and then it didn't work out in Philly because of him. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think he's going to do what he needs to do to find a way to make it work, even if it doesn't work out this season. Now it's a good chance it could work out. I mean, the 76ers are like 32 and 22 at the 5th seed. They're like 14 and 12 at home, 18 and 10 on the road, 6 and 4 in their last 10. Which isn't too bad. They're like 14th in offensive rating, 9th in defensive rating, 12th in net rating. Not bad. And then again in the 5th seed. So the Brooklyn Nets were the 8th seed when he left. So there's a chance that it could work. I don't know about them necessarily being contenders and figuring it out what's like 30 games left in the season. I don't know if it's enough time for them to figure it out and like become a championship caliber team this season. But that doesn't mean that won't happen for them next season. I think these next 30 games will be like an experiment to see if they can make it work with just James Harden and Joel Embiid, or if they need to get like a third star.
This whole third star thing is kind of getting really old.
It is. Now, it may not happen, but that doesn't mean that that's not what Philadelphia is thinking. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to happen. I think they can find a way to make it work, but we don't know what Daryl Morey and that front office is thinking.
Yeah. But this whole third star thing, we can use this as a transition, because I'm tired of holding it in. This whole third thing is probably what's going to ruin it. Because that Russell Westbrook trade, and you have no assets, you have no money to spend, you got to pay him more money next year. You're not going to be able to trade him unless you can find a deal in the offseason. You already have 2 other max contracts. Once those max contracts are up, once Russell Westbrook contract is up, once LeBron James' contract is up, you might be able to find someone to come play with Anthony Davis, but like with this front office, the way it is, where it's playing, the way it's operated these last 2 years, you failed 2 years of LeBron James at 37 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You failed 3 years of LeBron James because the first year he got there, you didn't do anything there either. You didn't even make the playoffs. So like, he doesn't have that much time left. Anthony Davis can barely stay healthy.
Right.
I'm going to need him to stay on the court.
Sad but true.
Every time he touches the ball, something goes wrong. It feels like so. and then once is we have no more. They have no more assets. I'm gonna stop saying we. I promise. They have no other assets. What other assets do they have to get better? That's why they didn't get better at the trade deadline. Because they didn't have anybody to get better with. You have 35-year-old vet minimum players. Taylor Horton-Tucker, who's not playing very well right now. And Malik Monk, who you're going to want to sign at the end of the season, but you might not be able to sign him because Russell Westbrook's under contract. How are you going to be able to re-sign Malik Monk if that guy that's a negative player most of the time? I like Russ. I like Russ as a person. But as a player, he's a negative player right now in 2022. Can you agree with that?
It's definitely hard to disagree with that.
Right.
So yeah. You're right. So for those who don't know, the Lakers didn't make any significant moves at the trade deadline, and that was like a huge deal. There were a ton of people who definitely thought that they were
significant. They didn't make anything. They didn't do anything. They just sat on their hands. They're gonna go to the buyout market to try to find more 35-year-olds to put on this team. And
at this point, they might. Go ahead.
And it's like, what are you doing? It's just frustrating. It's just frustrating. Go ahead.
Right. No, it is. It's. I can definitely see where it's frustrated. So the Lakers reportedly turned down a deal with the Rockets. That would have dealt with trading John Wall for Russell Westbrook and a 2027 first round pick, and possibly getting Eric Gordon in that deal somehow. But the Lakers apparently didn't want to give up that first round pick.
And when you're so incompetent, people come at you with outrageous deals like that. They shouldn't have took that deal, but they had no other option. Right? That I heard of.
No, that was really it.
I guess they had a thing with the Knicks and Cam Reddish, but if you get Cam Reddish and send out THC, isn't that basically the same thing? Is Cam Reddish that much better than
no. Not really.
Right, exactly. So,
not at this point in his career, no.
So there was no trade that could have helped this team. And it's just frustrating that they were at that point in the first place. And I think that the days of listening to superstars when they won all the time should be over, because it didn't work out. You had other
right.
Apparently they had other deals on the table in the summer before they did the Russell Westbrook trade. The two, Anthony Davis and LeBron, wanted Russell Westbrook. They got Russell Westbrook. It's not working. And now what do we do? You just wasted another season. Because I don't see anything changing. Nobody in the buyout market is going to help this team. Just like no trade was going to help this team. So,
right.
You just wasted another year of LeBron. Hopefully he doesn't dip out on you to go play with Bronny in a couple of years. But if he did, I completely understand. Because, what are you doing? Somebody needs to be fired.
True. And that might happen. This is what I feel. I feel like if there was a trade to be made, or somebody did, have something significant that they wanted to trade, I feel like that Anthony Davis and LeBron told the front office, don't do it, because they were the ones who vouched for Russ, for having Russ come to LA so much, that they're just like, we're just going to have to deal with it. We're just going to have to swallow our pride, deal with it, and find a way to make it work. And to me, that's really the only option that they have. I mean,
what's the way to make it work for them? What can they do to make it work? Do you know what they can do to make it work?
Not really, but I'm gonna tell you one thing. It definitely starts with the defense. Like,
this is a dumb roster. The roster is badly structured. People said that in the offseason. I didn't want to believe it. As a fan, you want to give everything a chance. But watching them, it doesn't work. We would have been better off staying with the guys from last year. I guarantee you they'd be a better team than they were this year. If they would have just stayed with the guys from last year, they would have had a year under their belt. The players would have been more developed, like Kuzma and all them. Would have been more developed in their roles, like he is in Washington.
Right.
You probably might have had to find a point guard, but Shooter wasn't gonna take anything less than what they offered him. I mean, anything the deal was good. The Shooter would happen. So they probably just had to find another point guard, but they'll better trade out.
Right.
Than Russell Westbrook.
Right, which I agree with. This is my thing. They wanted to get Russell Westbrook. Your two superstars vouched and said that's who we want to play with. So you made sure that you got Russell Westbrook and turned down other offers so that you could get Russell Westbrook. So in my book, in my opinion, that's what they wanted. That's what they got. I don't think that they thought it would be this bad, or at least not this bad this early. Maybe they thought in the playoffs it would be this bad and not in the regular season, but it's been this bad, from the beginning. I also don't think they accounted for the injuries. Anthony Davis and LeBron, LeBron being hurt to start the season. But then, of course, once he was able to come back from being hurt and off that suspension, he was great. Then he got hurt again and missed some games, but then came back and was still the same pretty much. I just don't think they accounted for that. They didn't account for Russ being what he is this year, I should say.
People in crypto.com arena, as they call it now, we're literally telling this man not to shoot the ball. I've never seen that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Bryant took some of the toughest, worst shots in the history of basketball, and that arena never told him not to shoot. I mean, I guess because they knew that he was going to make half of those shots, but
right.
They never told that man not to. They're telling this man not to shoot the ball.
Yeah, it is kind of embarrassing. I'm not gonna lie.
It's bad.
It is bad, for sure. It is bad.
Imagine how elite if you just paid Malik Monk, right? And kept Alex Caruso. Imagine how elite that is. Defense, offense.
Right.
The scoring of Malik Monk, the defense and plus minus of Alex Caruso. I don't know how you would say that. Would you say the plus minus or the net rating of Alex Caruso?
You could say his plus minus. You could just say that he just it's the right, yeah.
He was always a positive impact player. He didn't have to have a triple double to be a positive impact player. Russell Westbrook has triple doubles and be negative impact player. So what are we saying here? I don't know.
That's a good point. That's a good question. I don't know.
The Prince, you know, I've never had not had this much. How do I want to put that word? This is one of the least fun years I've ever had watching the 2019 Lance Stevenson, Michael Beasley, like a little more fun.
That's a fact. That's a sad fact, but a very true one.
The main team.
Yeah.
This should be the main team.
Yeah, it's bad. But I mean, this is the decision that they made.
If that team played this team 1-on-1, they probably beat this.
Oh no, they would for sure.
They got what the starting line? What they had: Lonzo, KCP, LeBron, Kuzma, and JaVale.
Yeah, I mean that team did destroy the Warriors on Christmas Day. I mean, I know it was just Christmas Day, but that was the KD Warriors. So I know it was just one game, but no, I agree. The weird thing about this team compared to last year's team is last year's team was a great defensive team, but they lacked a lot in offense. It's weird that this team's offense is pretty good, but their defense is so bad that it doesn't matter.
The numbers say they're pretty good, but when you watch them, they're very fun.
I mean, kind of, but I mean, even the last game versus Portland, they came out swinging. You saw those. I mean, they were hot in the first two quarters shooting wise. They were making shots. It's just that.
How do you lose that game to all those? See, that's what I'm saying. How do you lose to that team?
It's the defense. I told you the defense is so bad that it doesn't matter what they do offensively.
Who started?
Every game is close.
Who started?
A bunch of G League players.
Damian Lillard didn't start. C.J. McCollum had just got traded.
Yeah, it was.
Who else was Robert Covington? Not on that team. He had got traded. Who was? I can't even tell you a starter, and they lost to that team.
I mean, they had.
And you can't even blame Russell Westbrook that time because he didn't even play.
No, it of course not. But that's what I mean. Like the defense this year as a whole is so bad. Like it's you like I remember last year everybody was talking about the Nets played bad defense. It wasn't great, but it wasn't so bad that it matched their offense. Like it's so bad this year that you can't even tell how decent their offense is this year. That's how bad it is because it doesn't matter.
Also, the Nets were also 2 inches away from a conference finals and probably a championship.
I mean, true, but I'm talking about just the defense. Like everybody was just talking about their defense last year. Defense isn't that great. Defense isn't that great. Yada yada yada. Yeah, I feel you. And I was like, I get that. I was like, but their defense isn't that bad. But their offense is so good it doesn't matter. I was like, the defense isn't great, but it's not terrible. The Lakers' defense this year is atrocious. So like, it doesn't matter how good they are offensively or who they even add offensively. If they don't start buying in more on the defensive end, it's just gonna be more of the same thing. That's why every game is close.
Whose fault is that? Is it Frank Vogel's fault? The last 2 years, his defense was very good. He had the top defense last year. One of the top defenses last year.
Yeah, and the year before. Yeah, exactly. So, to me, it's just the pieces that they have. They gave up the pieces that made their defense great.
Thank you.
That's what it is. They gave up the
People keep
pieces
telling
that
me
made
the Lakers
defense
don't miss
great.
Alex Caruso and KCP. Yes, they do. They even
I know,
miss Kyle Kuzma.
they missed it for a fact.
They
Yeah,
even miss Kyle Kuzma defense.
yeah. I mean, the biggest problem with Kuz last year was really his offense. His defense wasn't bad. His defense was great. He was just inconsistent offensively sometimes, but his defense was great. But that's just what I'm saying. Like, their defense is so bad this year that it just ruins everything.
And then people always make the Austin Reeves Alex Caruso comparison. Like, if you kept Caruso with have Reeves, that's not true. They could have both of them. Why couldn't they have both of them?
No, they could have had both of them for sure.
They don't even play the same position. Why is that even a topic of conversation? Because they both white guys.
That's probably what it is. That's honestly probably what it is. So that's crazy. Okay, so the Lakers currently are 26-9. They're 19th in the West. They're 26-29. Excuse me. Ninth in the West.
30. I think Portland made it 26 and 30.
No, it's just 29.
Oh,
yeah, it ain't 30 yet. You trying to jinx? Now they play the Warriors on this Saturday tomorrow.
So
it probably will be 30 tomorrow, but they're 17-13 at home, 9-17 on the road, and they're 3-7 in their last 10, which is horrible. They're still top 3 in pace, which is crazy. They're 24th in offensive rating, 16th in defensive rating, 20th in net rating.
See what I'm saying about offense?
But see, part of the reason why that offensive rating is so it's weird. So of course the offensive rating isn't great, but you got LeBron averaging 29, 7 and 6, and then AD scored 25 plus and 5 out of his last 8. And he's had 10 plus rebounds and 4 out of his last 8. But like I said, what's ruining the offensive production is the defense being so bad. You can't even tell what the offensive production looks like. And then Westbrook's being so inefficient, and then a couple of their role players being so inefficient every night also doesn't help with their offensive rating.
Yeah.
But biggest thing is defense has to get better. But at this point, they can't add anybody to make defense better. So at this point, everybody has to buy in on the defensive end for it to get better.
Yeah.
Secondly,
and they show flashes sometimes where they play defense for like a possession or two, and then they go right back to playing bad defense. And it's everybody, including the stars.
I agree. I agree with that 100%. That's the reason why I said at this point, everybody just has to buy in on defense. Because it's not like you can play great defense for a couple of possessions here and there and then rely on some of your role players to play great defense for more possessions than the stars. Like, you don't have that luxury anymore. I felt like the last couple of years, the Lakers kind of had that luxury because they had the players who could do that, but they don't have that luxury this year. So that's why I say everybody has to buy in, including, people always get on Melo for his defense, but at this point, he got to play great defense. They can't continue to try and hide him on D. Same with Russell Westbrook. If he's in there, he's got to play great defense. Like, there's nobody that they can add that's going to help make their defense better. So at this point, everybody just has to buy in on defense. If nobody buys in on defense, it's going to be more of the same. They're going to be in the play-in, or they won't even make the play-in at all.
They'll probably be in the play-in. I'm thinking back.
I can't either, but I also didn't think at this point in the season they would be this bad.
That'll be a nice game. Yeah, you're right.
So they've got a lot they got to make up for. I just think that they all kind of agree, like, again, this is the choice we made. We got to live with it. Just got to find a way to make it work. So we'll see what the Lakers end up doing. They've got I think it's got 26 games left in the regular season and 24 games after the All-Star break. So, to be honest,
Isn't the All-Star this weekend?
Next weekend.
Next weekend. Okay.
Yeah, next weekend. Yeah, this weekend the Lakers play the Warriors. That's not going to be a win, but at this point,
Hey, it might.
we'll see. I'll tell you what, they need a win like that. Like the Warriors don't need that win. Like, the Warriors can lose to the Lakers and not even bat an eye, and it's okay. but that's because of how well they've been playing this season. So if they were to like rest some people before the All-Star break, like if they decided they wanted to rest Curry, Clay, Draymond, they could, and lose to the Lakers on Saturday. It wouldn't matter.
I think the league's changing. I think the younger generation is kind of taking over. You look at the standings and you see the Cavs, where the Cavs are. You see where the Grizzlies are. You see where the Suns are.
Yeah.
Those are all young teams. Usually the experience wins out. Like most champions have an average age of like 29, 30 years old. Which was stupidly one of my points to start the season. People talking about the Lakers age. You people that were talking about the Lakers age, y'all were right. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, but see, this is the only thing I'll say. It's still the regular season.
Cool.
We all know things are a lot different in the postseason.
I still take a healthy Anthony Davis in the front end.
So what I'm saying, I still take a lot of healthy vet savvy teams in the playoffs over some of these younger teams.
But yeah, it has somebody else step up. We need another point guard. What is Kendrick Nunn doing? Why is he still hurt? That's the meanest bone bruise I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah, Kendrick Nunn's injury is a bone bruise. And it just got reported that he's going to be out till late March. Oh yeah, I don't know what that's about. But you bringing up another point guard. Last question I'll ask you about the Lakers. It's rumored that if Dennis Schroeder gets bought out, that they're looking to sign him. Again, would you take him?
Something. Yes, that's fine. Something.
I'll be honest. If they take him, then that means Russell Westbrook is coming off the bench.
At this point, I have no problem with that. And if he wants to go home about it, that's on him.
I'm just being honest. If the Lakers pick up Dennis Schroeder again, I think Russell Westbrook is going to the bench.
They can go get your car and drive it. They can go get Dennis Schroeder. I just want a point guard that's gonna be a plus. They can even come off the bench to feed Russ's ego, so he won't mess up the locker room or whatever. He can still start, but if he's not playing like he has played in the past, like before this season, the plus player that Russell Westbrook was,
right?
Westbrook. Well, I said Westbrook. I cannot believe I did that. I apologize.
Oh God.
But what else? Oh yeah, if a buyout point guard comes in, you can still start him. But if he's not playing, like a plus player in crunch time, he's gonna have to go to the bench.
Right.
And how he feels about it is on him. Because if you're not playing like you should be playing, why do you think you should be in the game? Because he said that out of his mouth. That's a problem for me. Like,
true.
I get Russell Westbrook feels like he has something to prove. He feels like he's proven everything he needs to prove. But like, my guy, you won MVP 4 years ago. That was a long time ago. Since I've looked at you and like, dang, Russell Westbrook's a pretty good player. He's one of the top 5 to 10 players in the league. That's the last time I said that about Russell Westbrook. And right now, the way you're playing, to insinuate that you feel like you should be in the starting lineup or in the closing lineup, regardless of how you're playing, man, go sit down. Okay, at the end of it.
Yeah.
Play better. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add?
No, that's really it. I think it was an interesting trade deadline. I just feel like the most significant moves were between Brooklyn and the Sixers, and then they had that trade between the Pacers and the King. That was very interesting. Kind of set NBA Twitter world on fire.
Yeah. I think it works out for both teams. I think it was done for the Kings to trade Harden. What's the name? How do you say his name?
I say Halliburton, but I don't know if that's right. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But he's been on fire this season, so I wasn't expecting them to trade him.
Like, he should have been one of those untouchable type players. Like, he's averaging 14.7 assists on good shooting percentages.
I don't know why they traded him.
40% from three on like 4 attempts or something like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. The Kings and Pacers are weird. But that trade set NBA Twitter on fire, and then the Lakers doing absolutely nothing also kind of set the world on fire. But I'm be honest with you, I expected it.
Me too. Because like I said, they had no assets. They had nothing to trade. There was nothing to trade that was going to make this team from a 9th seed to a 6th seed in the next 20 years.
Exactly. So that's the reason why I said they got to deal with it, and I think they know that too. So it'll be interesting to see how the Lakers finish out these last 26 games. It'll also be interesting to see who does better to finish the season, the Nets or the Sixers. Sixers already got a head start because of the 5th seed, while the Nets are the 8th seed and KD isn't back yet. So,
and there's no timetable for his return. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Nets are not going to finish ahead of the Sixers in the playoffs. We'll see how that goes.
Right. That to me, that's going to be the story. To see when the playoffs start, we'll see which teams are real and which teams aren't. That's all I know.
Again, in the playoffs, Kyrie still can't play.
Oh yeah, you're right, because they didn't get that. Well, we'll see what happens.
But at least you'll have a healthy, hopefully, Kevin Durant, who's still one of the top 3 players in the world.
Yeah, of course.
Hopefully you'll have Ben Simmons. It depends on what position he plays. And then Seth Curry is done a great pickup in that.
Right.
I feel like Andre Drummond is too. Because Andre Drummond can. Because who's their starting center over there? Is it Blake Griffin? I don't know if you start Andre Drummond because the Lakers tried that in 2020. It did 2021. It did not work out. I don't know how much it'll work out for Brooklyn. They can try it. But I don't know. But I think that Seth Curry is going to help a lot considering the situation that they are in with Kyrie Irving.
I agree with that. I think Seth Curry. Seth Curry is going to help out Brooklyn a whole lot. They're going to love that pickup. Having him and Patty Mills in there, it's a lot of shooting for Brooklyn, so they're going to like that.
You can go small ball. Patty Mills and Seth Curry shooting all over the place.
That's what I'm saying.
Ben Simmons as the facilitator. That's crazy. Like, you can be something nasty in Brooklyn. You have Ben Simmons playing with LeBron Roller, facilitate the offense shoot, and then score like him right out there.
Right.
Fulfilling that spot. But the Brooklyn Nets will be up for it.
Right.
And I hope that they get it together. But at this point, I'm not really pulling for anybody to win a championship because I know my team isn't winning the championship. So I'm going to have to find somebody to win it.
Right. I don't know. Maybe the Lakers can get it together. Right. But you got anything else to add?
No, that's it. What about you?
That's it. I'm interested to see what this back half of the season is like after the All-Star break. See which teams step up and which teams take a couple steps back.
On a personal level, Russell Westbrook's my guy. I just want to put that out in the open because it sounded like I hated him in this episode, but I'm really just talking about basketball. I don't think he's the right fit for the team. I don't know what team he's the right fit for. I don't know when he was the last time he was a right fit for a team. Hopefully he finds that team, but it won't be with the Lakers. Hopefully he figures it out in the summer because I don't want to go back into next season with the same roster, with the same big three. We're gonna have to do something. This has been another episode of Point Out, and we'll see y'all next.